Good evening, Los Angeles. Yesterday, the world champion Los Angeles Lakers returned home with their 17th championship trophy. LeBron James, playing in his 17th year in the league, matched our 17 crowns. And I know that I can't wait to see that newest championship banner unveiled at Staples Center in coming months. But I'm so proud of this city. I'm so proud of our Lakers. They showed us the dominance that showed one victory after another and a lasting impact that they left us with this season. They brought us together in moments of grief and suffering. They stood strong, leading the fight for racial justice in America. And along with the entire NBA, they taught us a thing or two about COVID. They showed what happens when we all buy into a comprehensive response to COVID-19. There were 0 infections over the past 2.5 months at the NBA campus in Orlando. The players always wore masks off the court, they embraced physical distancing, and they got tested frequently. And they were an example to this nation of how we can all stop the spread of this threat to our nation and to our city. Follow the science, follow the rules, and listen to public health experts. I want to congratulate Jeannie Buss, the first woman owner to win an NBA championship. I want to congratulate her and Rob Pelinka and Coach Vogel and the entire team who gave us such a lift in what has been the toughest of years. We're so grateful to you, and we celebrate alongside with you. We all know, though, that we have to continue doing just what the Lakers did, summoning our strength in the most difficult times, and together listening to the advice, listening to the rules, and making sure that we save lives and livelihoods. We can't let our guard down because COVID-19 is still here. It's still deadly. It's still around us every single day. And if we needed a reminder, look what just happened this last week in an assisted living facility in Sylmar. After our fire department was called to transport patients from the facility there, they suspected there might have been a larger problem. Thank goodness that LAFD has surge teams to be able to go in there, working together with the county, who have put an emphasis on our skilled nursing facilities and reduced deaths there by 82%. And lo and behold, we called that mobile team in to immediately test all 60 residents and staff on site, and we found an outbreak. A total of 23 people, residents and staff, who tested positive for COVID-19, which was a 38% positivity rate in that home. We promptly worked with the County Department of Public Health to make them aware of their status and to get the facility resources that they needed, the tests that they could do tests every single week to limit the spread. We're responding as quickly as we can, but the fact is this didn't have to happen. This was preventable. Like so much of this pandemic, our actions can either save lives or take lives. Our sacrifices can be the difference between death and survival for the people we love the most. Our small daily steps aren't just critical. They aren't just about a single nursing home. They are about our city itself and its survival. We're living right now, thankfully, in a reduced caseload environment, but it is a reduced caseload but high-risk environment. We are seeing worrying trends in the data in the last couple days, and we need to take action now to continue to press that curve down, to keep ourselves and our communities healthy, and to ensure this isn't just the calm before the next storm. The county now estimates that our rate of transmission is 1.05, which is higher than last week, and importantly, higher than 1, that magic number I keep sharing with you. It means in plain terms that we are headed in the wrong direction for the first time in over 2 weeks. Today, we saw 1,349 cases reported in LA County, and our 7-day average is now 1,116 cases a day, a 3% increase from last week. We're also seeing increased demand for testing in our testing centers for the last 10 days or 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago, we administered about 65,000 tests. Last week and this week, we've seen that demand surge to about 80,000 tests a week, a notable increase that we are monitoring closely. And our positivity rate of those tests, even with increased demand, has gone up slightly from 2.8 to 3.1%. Now, don't get me wrong, these numbers would be welcome numbers just a couple months ago. But any trend in the wrong direction is a trend in the wrong direction. We've seen how these small tripwires can lead to large outbreaks, further closures, and bad news, resulting most tragically in the deaths of our loved ones. So, thankfully, though, our hospitalizations run counter to that right now, remaining at far lower levels than we saw over the summer. It's currently 723 hospitalized Angelenos, a 27% drop from hospitalizations just 6 weeks ago. We have 196 ICU patients that are severely sick, and we're praying for their recovery. But that number is also a substantial decrease since last month. And today in LA County, we lost 22 neighbors to COVID-19, a number higher than our daily average of 15 over the last week. None of these numbers are easy to hear. Each one of them is a name, each one of them a story. Each one of them belongs to a family. And as always, for families that are hanging on every call from the hospital, who are hoping for the best, we are there alongside you. And for those who have lost a loved one, we mourn alongside you as well. Last Friday, the state updated its guidance to allow private gatherings of 3 or fewer households, as long as it happens outdoors, at least 6 feet of physical distance, and everyone wears a cloth face covering, and food is in single-serve disposable containers. And the duration of the get-together is short. LA County is updating its local health orders this evening, and LA City is as well, to align with this new state guidance. If you do gather with 2 other households beyond your own, it's recommended that you do so with the same households each time, creating a quasi-bubble that contains and reduces the risk of spreading this virus. So a reminder, the state guidance isn't about convening a different pod of 3 different households every single night. This is about 3 households that are part of a single recurring pod. So please don't pod creep. Simply put, use your head, make smart decisions, protect your loved ones, and these new allowances should not result in new cases if we adhere to them correctly. With this change, I want to offer a few reminders. A few things don't count as a household. An entire institutional living setting, like a skilled nursing facility, a sorority or fraternity, a hotel or a motel, an entire dormitory. That's not a household. Second, if you are limiting household interaction, you should not attend a gathering of any kind. So even if you qualify with 3 households or less, if you're sick, stay away. And finally, large parties, events, and gatherings are still prohibited under the county's guidance. So just because you can get together, you can't get together for larger gatherings. No matter what the numbers say, the future of this virus rests in your hands, in our hands. And together we are powerful. Powerful to save lives as you've done, powerful to save livelihoods. People alive today because of your actions can never thank you, because we don't know who would have been taken if we hadn't taken these steps. But we do know that they are around us everywhere, in our families, in our neighborhoods, in our workplaces, and in our communities. And as we've seen and done for months now, meeting the charge of what we have to do under COVID-19 means changing the way we mark so many of our regular celebrations, even, for instance, the holidays. And since it's mid-October now, it means thinking about new ways to mark Halloween this year. We simply can't go and have our typical traditions that we usually enjoy so much. Halloween gatherings, events, or parties with people outside your household are not prohibited, even if they happen outdoors. Carnivals, festivals, live entertainment, and haunted house attractions are not allowed either. Door-to-door trick-or-treating is not recommended, as it makes social distancing nearly impossible. And the same goes for what's called trunk-or-treating, where children go from car to car instead of from house to house, since it's difficult to avoid that very same crowding and sharing of food. Believe me, as a father, I know how disappointing this is for our children. But we can come up with creative ways, whether it's hiding candy in our backyard or figuring a way to make great art together, dressing up inside our households. Create your own tradition this year, but create one that is safe. These holiday changes aren't the only ways that we can remain healthy and safe. Flu season is here, and we're seeing early indicators that flu symptoms and reports of flu in call-in centers for our health providers are ticking up another worrying trend. But here's something you can do to combat that. Get your flu shot. It's easy, it's simple. You can get a free vaccination through our partnership with USC's School of Pharmacy, which is bringing flu shots directly to neighborhoods across our city. Today, our team is at the union headquarters of Labor's Local 300 in Mission Hills, working together with Councilmember Monica Rodriguez. And on Saturday from 10 to 2, LA Care and Blue Cross will be hosting a drive-up site at Expo Park, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. More locations will come online in the weeks ahead, but go to your local pharmacy, go to your local regular healthcare provider, and get a flu shot now so we can make sure we aren't overwhelmed and that some of these tripwires are not set off in our fight against COVID-19. And if you think you might have been exposed to COVID-19, please, you should get tested right away. As of today, we've tested nearly 1.7 million people in our City of Los Angeles test sites. As I mentioned, our positivity rate is now at 3.1%. And besides the mobile testing teams at Labor's Local 300 in Mission Hills, we're also at Sherman Way and Sepulveda and Van Nuys and MacArthur Park. And tomorrow, these mobile test sites, again, no appointment necessary, they'll be at the Weingart East LA YMCA and at Webb and Strathern in North Hollywood. And our Union Station site, which has been a big hit, is open 7 days a week. For so many of us, the past few months have seen dramatic changes in our daily routines. And as a city, we've made changes to adapt to these times and to help one another. One of the things we did was lifting a wide range of parking restrictions early on when everybody needed to be at home, so you wouldn't have to worry about moving your car on street sweeping days when you stayed safer at home. These steps were always meant to be temporary, and as we announced a few weeks ago, parking enforcement will resume tomorrow, October 15th, across the city of Los Angeles. So this is just a helpful reminder. Everybody needs to get back in the habit of checking those rules on your block, parking your car, allowing our city street sweepers to do their work to keep our city clean. We've all gotten used to living our lives remotely, but our goal is to be able to return in person to our offices and our schools as soon as possible. That's why today I issued an emergency order giving more flexibility to schools that operate under city-approved conditional use permits, so they can make preparations to protect students, teachers, and staff when the county allows on-campus instruction and extracurricular activities. These campuses will now be able to submit temporary operating plans to make sensible changes to advance health and safety during this pandemic, including changing their drop-off and pickup times, adjusting their hours of instruction, and shifting the way they use indoor and outdoor spaces on campus, and increasing faculty and staff to support small classroom sizes. While this allows schools to prepare for safe in-class operations and activities, the decision to open schools for in-class instruction remains with the County Department of Public Health. Currently, schools remain closed to in-person instruction with the exception of limited specialized services and assessments for high-need students. And the County Department of Public Health is also accepting waiver applications for grades TK through 2. Our kids are the heart of our communities, and I want us to do everything we can at the highest priority to get kids, especially our young kids, back in school. So the city is here to assist any school that is under an operating conditional use permit from the city when that day comes, to make that day come sooner. Schools can learn more by emailing our city's Department of City Planning of Zoning Administration at planning.schools@lacity.org. That's planning.schools@lacity.org. If we can say one thing about 2020 so far, it's that nothing in this year seems predictable or ordinary. But we have to remember that we are not powerless, that this isn't chaos over which we have no control. We can have our voices heard. And we need to, especially now in the closing days of a deadline I feel is way too soon, to make sure we fill out our census forms. There's literally no time to waste. The 2020 tally ends tomorrow night. So please, every Angelino who's heard me say this every single time I've come before you, fill it out tonight. Leave this briefing and go do it. You can do it in English and in Spanish and multiple languages. You can mail it in, you can do it online, or you can call it in. And let's send a message loud and clear that LA is here, that we count, that our resources are things that we deserve, and that we will be treated by our federal government with the equality that we deserve. So go to my2020census.gov or call 844-330-2020 right now. And there's something else that is in our hands, and I know that you're all focused on that, but that is our very democracy. Election Day is only 20 days away, if you can believe it. And there's nothing more fundamental to your power as an American than the right to vote. Every registered voter in California is getting a ballot in the mail with an envelope and prepaid postage. Just make your picks and send it back. It's that easy. Like many other states that have done this, red and blue states. This is something that I've advocated for a long time in our elections, and I'm so glad to see it coming. I'm sorry it took a pandemic. But you can also take one of your ballots, if you don't want to mail it in, to one of the 400 drop boxes across the county, and you can return it to a vote center. And starting on October 24th, you can begin to show up early and vote in person. Show up on Election Day if you need to, but all health and distancing protocols must still be followed. If you have any questions about how to vote, go to lamayor.org/LAvotes, and we have all the information there you need. A couple of weeks ago, many of us were jolted awake by an earthquake that was felt across the Southland, an ever-present reminder of the importance of staying resilient and prepared. We have the power to meet that objective too. And tomorrow morning will mark the annual Great Shakeout Earthquake Drill. Maybe you've done this at work, maybe you've done this at school. Maybe this year you'll be doing it at home. But we're asking everybody to take part at 10:15 a.m. All Angelinos should practice the simple, life-saving steps of drop, cover, and hold for 1 minute. And as always, it's a good reminder during Great Shakeout to have an emergency kit and a plan. Most families don't have a plan. Where do we go? Where do we meet? What if our phones don't work? Make sure you have fresh water, food that's up to date. And you can download the Shake Alert LA app and sign up for Notify LA at notifyla.org for those critical seconds and reminders that can save lives. For more information, go to emergency.lacity.org/get-prepared. And when we do the Great Shakeout every single year, we get a refresher on the procedures that are there to keep us safe at work or at home. Simply put, earthquake preparedness saves lives as long as we all do our part. We know it's the same for COVID-19. It's been a season of heartache, but it's been a season of triumphs. Not just the Lakers, not just the Dodgers, who when I started this press conference were up 15-1 and scored more runs in a single inning than I think has ever happened in the playoffs. I've never given up on our boys in blue, and I know they can pull through. And so can you. For this year, for this pandemic, for the economic hardship, for our calls for racial justice, for the climate change, for all the stress, for all the suffering that we have carried, there is a brighter day coming when we do what's right, when we join together, and when we see a better tomorrow ahead. So as always, Los Angeles, let's stay safe and stay healthy. And whenever possible, please stay at home. Wishing you all strength and love. And with that, I'll take questions and I'll give Spanish remarks after that. First question, please.
First question comes from the line of Conan Nolan with NBC Los Angeles. Please go ahead.
Hey, Conan, how are you?
Hi, Mayor. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Nice to see you. So
You
a couple
too.
of very quick questions. You said that Halloween activities should not take place, but in Beverly Hills they've included trick or treat. You said it's not recommended. So are you telling people that it's just a violation of the protocol to trick or treat, or are you telling them they can do it, but they have to be careful?
No, we're saying we recommend not doing it. That's we adhere to what the county recommendation it is. It isn't one that, and I think everybody can appreciate, it would be a very difficult thing to enforce across a city of 4 million. But we're hoping, just like with masks, just like with physical distance, just like washing your hands and everything else, that people won't. That they'll come up with a different tradition in a different way. So making sure that we can have people protected. Remember, just because young people are less vulnerable doesn't mean that young people can't transmit this. So please be safe. Let's not have one night set us back for weeks or months.
So the Lakers celebration is postponed, assuming the Dodgers rally not just today, but for the next several days. Is there any plans in place as to when those celebrations might take place?
Not yet. With the Dodgers, I don't want to tempt fate, although we used to in past years have to prepare, and I've tried to prepare twice for our World Series when we played fair and I believe won. But that aside, no, right now we're going to listen to the Lakers, see if they have any ideas. They've been so responsible. They have really called on everybody to celebrate responsibly, to do it safely, just as they modeled in the bubble. But whether we just, declare some Laker Day and we all do things at the same time, maybe 8:24 p.m. or something, whether we take suggestions of places that we can see the Lakers celebrating together virtually, we're open to whatever the club wants to do, and some great suggestions that people around the city have shared with us and that we've passed on to the Lakers. But no imminent plans, but I do hope that we get a safe way to be able to celebrate and to thank these Lakers. We don't want that just to go into the firmament. We should have at least a couple months to celebrate that before stressing out about baseball, but given this year, they're overlapping one after the next. And I know that we will be prepared with the Dodgers too. We've got Dodger Stadium, we've got the ability to drive places, maybe car celebrations, but we're listening to the health professionals and listening to the teams first.
And for clarity, the public health says the county needs to double down if we want to get out of purple. Yeah. One is getting the impression that the problem with transmission is not in a public square, but is in private homes. And the focus of private gatherings where the arm of the state has limits, obviously. Do I have that right? Is your biggest concern not so much how much in terms of commerce this disease is transmitting, but what people are doing in their homes, and you are sort of powerless other than trying to convince people to do the right thing?
Yeah, we've been very powerful because people have adhered to that. I know we get exhausted. We're always concerned with the public spaces as well. For instance, we had a lot of people who were out and protesting this weekend because of the situation in Artsakh, and we wanted to make sure people wear masks and keep a distance, just as we said in protests earlier this year. Those are always of concern. But certainly the place that we can't see and the place that it's really Scout's honor, it's really on each one of us, is that behavior in our own households and between households. So giving that guidance, I think, is the best way. And Angelinos have showed time and time again that we've made the right decisions. As I shared last week, we scored huge on the state equity in terms of how we've helped disadvantaged communities. We've never had a massive outbreak here. We've always been at the bottom of cities of our vulnerability in terms of the number of cases. Let's keep that going, because yesterday's victory, as we're seeing in other parts of the country, can be tomorrow's tragedy. And those tragedies aren't just bad numbers, they're people's lives.
And finally, have you seen any concern about fast food restaurants? Have there been complaints or any warnings? About
spread from fast food restaurants?
Yes, correct.
No, look, we are concerned where there's been workers who have, in some places early on, we did have complaints, folks who weren't being provided with adequate PPE, cases of workers who absolutely got spread. I'd have to talk to county public health on terms of the recent ones and whether they've been able to trace those back to fast food. But whatever employer, whether it's there or as we've seen in factories, there has been fear among workers sometimes when their bosses say, we're not going to give you PPE, we're not going to give you the bathroom breaks, we don't have hand sanitizer. Those places are absolutely in violation of the law and need to be dealt with. And so we have had a lot of inspections of businesses, we have cited a lot of businesses for those, and we encourage workers to please let us know in those situations. You can certainly call 311 and or contact the county directly. We want to know.
And you don't have any concerns that COVID's going to interfere in the electoral process?
Well, I do have concerns, of course. Here in California, I think we've done the right thing. In other states, I have that concern absolutely, that either people are being encouraged to go vote in dangerous environments, long lines that we're seeing around the country. We have a 400% increase at this time in early voting, just in the ballots returned already by mail in California, LA County. So I do have those concerns in other places, but everybody can safely vote without having any risky COVID exposure through voting at home. And certainly that's what I'll be doing. I'm going to drop off my ballot tomorrow, and I encourage folks to do the same.
Thank you, Mayor. Good luck.
Thank you, Conan. It's almost like a news conference with Conan Nolan. It was great.
Yeah, I'm looking for the day you can be back in the studio.
For sure.
That would be nice. Thanks
Thank
again.
You. Next question, please.
And the next question comes from the line of Dakota Smith with the LA Times. Please go ahead.
Hi, Dakota. Sorry to make you wait so long.
That's okay. Thank you. Just curious about the Biden campaign. At this point, how much of your time would you say percentage-wise are you focused on the city and city issues, and how much time are you focused on helping elect Biden?
Since this is City Hall, I usually don't talk about political stuff, but since it's a work hour question, I would say 95% of the time as mayor, actually probably the 100%, there's been no reduction in my hours whatsoever. I just am not sleeping as much and putting those extra hours into helping Los Angeles by making sure we have an outcome in November. But since I'm in a city environment, I won't make any advocacy for how I'm voting or who I'm voting for.
Well, I mean, you could touch briefly on how much time you're spending on.
Yeah,
city
I just
issues
did.
and
There's
not
been
talk.
no diminution at all of my 100% of my hours that I put in for mayor. I'm still putting in. That's always and will be always my first priority.
The Politico did report that the vetting team spent 120 hours on picking Harris, so that would seem like you didn't actually spend 100% of your time if there was 120 hours.
No, let me be very clear, and then I'll move
Harris.
on to the next question. 100% of the time of the hours that I would put into being mayor, I'm still putting in 100% of that. Under this COVID, we don't have as many evening events and things like that on my off hours. I absolutely am working very hard as co-chair of the Biden campaign, but that is not coming at the expense of a single hour that I would have put in. I still am working those 16-hour days for the city, and then I work my off hours on that. Thanks. All right, I'll go to Spanish next. Muy buenas tardes, Los Ángeles, y gracias por venir esta noche. Ayer regresó nuestro equipo campeón a Los Ángeles. Estamos todos tan agradecidos a nuestros Lakers, no solo para traernos la gloria de un campeonato, sino también por unirnos en momentos de tristeza y por ser un ejemplo en cómo responder de manera segura de COVID-19. Nos mostraron que cuando todos siguen los consejos de los expertos y científicos, llevar mascarillas y mantener nuestra distancia y evitar reuniones, podemos controlar la propagación de este virus. Esta es la única manera de avanzar en nuestra lucha contra este virus. Hoy en nuestro condado tuvimos 1,349 nuevas infecciones. Nuestro promedio de 7 días es ahora de 1,116 casos al día, un aumento de 3% desde la semana pasada. Nuestras hospitalizaciones permanecen en niveles mucho más bajos que los que vimos durante el verano, actualmente en 723. Y hoy en el condado de Los Ángeles fallecieron 22 vecinos con COVID-19, más alto que 15, lo que era nuestro promedio diario de la semana pasada. Este virus está aquí y está peligroso. El condado estima que la tasa de transmisión ahora es de 1.05, lo cual ha subido desde la semana pasada y nos indica que vamos en la dirección incorrecta. Mañana el condado actualizará sus órdenes para alinearse con las pautas de seguridad del Estado, permitiendo reuniones de hasta 3 hogares mientras estén al aire libre. Si se reúnen con otros 2 hogares, se recomienda que lo hagan con los mismos hogares cada vez. Con esta actualización, les recuerdo de lo siguiente. Si tienes síntomas de enfermedad o si ha dado positiva en la prueba de COVID-19 o si ha estado expuesto a alguien que es positivo, no debe asistir a una reunión. Y los eventos y reuniones públicas grandes siguen estando prohibidos, incluso cuando se celebran al aire libre. Y con la época de Halloween y Día de los Muertos a punto de empezar, recuerden que no se permiten reuniones, eventos o fiestas de Halloween con personas que no son parte de su hogar, incluso si son al aire libre. Además, no se recomienda salir a pedir dulces en el vecindario, ya que el distanciamiento social es casi imposible. Yo sé lo decepcionante que es esto para todos, especialmente nuestros hijos, pero este Halloween tiene que ser diferente para proteger nuestras familias. Además, puede proteger a su familia al vacunarse contra la influenza. Este es muy importante por los recursos de nuestros hospitales y sistemas de cuidados de salud. La ciudad está ofreciendo vacunas contra la influenza gratis en clínicas móviles por toda la ciudad. El sábado estarán LA Care y Blue Cross de 10 a 2 en un sitio de autoservicio en Expo Park. Puede encontrar más información en coronavirus.lacity.org/flu-shot. Y si cree que pudo haber sido expuesto al COVID-19, hágase una prueba inmediatamente. Mañana tendremos equipos de prueba móviles en Weingart, East LA, YMCA, y en Webb y Strathern, en North Hollywood. Y nuestro sitio de Union Station está abierto 7 días a la semana. A principios de este año, levantamos temporalmente algunas restricciones de estacionamiento. Estos pasos siempre fueron temporales y, como anunciamos hace unas semanas, la aplicación de la ley de estacionamiento se reanudará mañana, 15 de octubre, en toda la ciudad de Los Ángeles. Por favor, recuerden observar las reglas de estacionamiento de mañana en adelante. Necesitamos limpiar nuestras calles, es muy importante mover sus carros. Hoy emití una orden de emergencia que otorga más flexibilidad a escuelas que operan con permisos de la ciudad, para que puedan tomar medidas para proteger a los estudiantes, maestros y personal. Las escuelas pueden obtener más información enviando un correo electrónico a la Oficina de Administración de Zonificación del Departamento de Planificación de la ciudad a planning.schools@lacity.org. planning.schools@lacity.org. El conteo del censo de 2020 termina mañana por la noche. Por favor, especialmente en nuestra comunidad latina, es importante tomar acción hoy, esta noche. Si usted y su familia todavía no ha completado su cuestionario del censo, por favor, hágalo inmediatamente y llame a su familia y sus amigos para asegurar que hagan lo mismo también. Todos debemos participar para asegurar la representación que merecemos en Washington, D.C. y los recursos que necesitamos en nuestras comunidades. Visita la página my2020census.gov o llame al 1-844-468-2020 ahora mismo. Con solo 20 días para el día de las elecciones, también les recuerdo que nuestra democracia está en nuestras manos. Es importante que todos tengan un plan para votar. Cada votante registrado en California recibe una boleta por correo con un sobre y franqueo prepegado. Lo puede llevar a uno de los 400 buzones del condado o devolverlo a un centro de votación. Y a partir del 24 de octubre puede ir a un centro de votación en persona para votar temprano o ir a votar el día de las elecciones. Si tiene alguna pregunta, visite lamayor.org/LA-votes. Y para terminar, hace un par de semanas tuvimos un terremoto en Los Ángeles. Mañana, por la mañana, observaremos el gran simulacro del terremoto anual. Se llama Great Shakeout, para practicar nuestra preparación para un terremoto. Les pedimos a todos que participen. A las 10:15 en la mañana, todos deben practicar los pasos simples para protegerse. Agacharse, cubrirse y sujetarse fuertemente durante 1 minuto. Para más información, visite emergency.lacity.org/getprepared. Continuemos haciendo nuestra parte para protegernos a todos de terremotos, en este tiempo difícil económicamente y durante esta pandemia de COVID-19. Como siempre, quédense protegidos, quédense sanos y quédense en casa. Muchísimas gracias y fuerza y amor, Los Ángeles. And go Dodgers. See you soon.